October 2020. The U.S. Navy destroyer USS Cole is attacked by a boat carrying explosives, manned by 2 members of Al-Qaeda. The suicide attackers detonated after impacting the ship, resulting in the loss of 17 American sailors' lives and injuring 39 others. 2 decades later, threats have evolved, and terrorists can now inflict similar damage at a much lower cost, not only in terms of the lives of extremists but also in terms of financial investment. The new threat comes from the skies, but it is remotely controlled. The significant challenge for the U.S. Navy is the lethality of drones. In this new military aviation video, we will explore how significant this problem is for the U.S. Navy and how it has worked to counter these unmanned threats. In 2020, terrorists used a swarm of drones carrying explosives to disable the radar and weapon systems of the USS John Basilone. The destroyer was docked at the Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station, loading missiles and ammunition, just months before deploying with its carrier strike group. This incident demonstrated that, although the threat of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, has existed for years, the Navy still needs to prioritize defense against these easily acquired weapons. Otherwise, amid preparations for high-level combat, ships could be vulnerable to an adversary who, with just a few $1,000s of investment, could damage or even destroy a billion-dollar warship. While civilian drone use is commonplace today, the military was the first to work on the concept of an unmanned aerial vehicle. Ironically, the U.S. Navy, now in a dilemma against them, pioneered the acquisition of UAVs for use during the Gulf War in 1991. The early generations of these more modern weapons were primarily surveillance aircraft but gradually incorporated destructive capabilities with the addition of missiles and explosives. Thus, the new combat machines were born cheaper, disposable, and nearly as capable, offering the possibility of deployment without risking crews. But it wasn't all good news for Washington. The new technologies would soon fall into the hands of rivals who knew how to exploit them. The balance was not in favor of the United States, as its valuable military assets, such as ships, defense systems, and missiles, were threatened by low-cost, second-hand drones used by terrorist groups and insurgents, whose only chance of overcoming a power is through asymmetric warfare. ISIS used unmanned aerial vehicles as explosive carriers for the first time in 2016 and never looked back. In 2018, a swarm drone attack made by them was reported in Syria. Besides homemade ones, insurgents can buy high-end consumer drones for around $2,000. These drones have a range of up to 18 kilometers, can fly through landmarks, with a maximum speed of 75 kilometers per hour, and a small payload capacity to add explosives. With these means at their disposal, the next step is to find the right moment for the attack. Truth be told, it's not a great difficulty for Western enemies either, as most carrier groups follow predictable deployment schedules to maintain a U.S. naval presence in the Western Pacific and the Middle East. All ships go through a preparation period before starting their journey, including short trips, checks, and weapon loading. To make matters worse, terrorists can also use social media to deepen their monitoring of warships and gather more information. To know how to attack a ship, they can simply study open-source images, for example, of the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, to determine the locations of key weapons and communication systems. This expensive electronic equipment is logically vulnerable to explosive devices carried by drones or kamikaze-style attacks. Coding-savvy enthusiasts have shown that they can reprogram UAVs to track people, so that knowledge base also allows programming aerial threats to focus on communication antennas, weapon systems, or radar arrays. Seeking answers to an unfavorable scenario, the U.S. Navy has had to accompany changes in modern battlefields with its technological advances, including the electromagnetic warfare system called Drake. This was built by Northrop Grumman and originally used on Humvees during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars to prevent the detonation of improvised explosive devices. However, it can now be found throughout the surface fleet of the U.S. Navy. Drake can combat enemy drones by emitting signals that disconnect the UAV from its operator. This forms a shield so that the aggressor cannot approach a certain distance from the ship. The system can use high or low frequency signals depending on the target it faces, but while it can be effective against a certain number of rivals, the problem arises when a ship is attacked by a swarm of unmanned vehicles. From that point on, the only response found to the problem is to counter the destructive capability of many drones with an even greater power of devastation. The RIM-116 ram is the first solution that U.S. Navy ships found for drone swarms. This is a small ground-to-air missile based on the well-known air-to-air Sidewinder projectile. Originally intended and used as a defense weapon for anti-ship missiles, its capabilities made it a great alternative for destroying UAVs. As the name suggests, the ram rolls during flight because the radio frequency tracking system uses a two-antenna interferometer that can measure the phase interference of the electromagnetic wave in a single plane. In this way, with constant movement, it achieves a better observation of the target. The RIM-116 projectiles can reach a speed of Mach 2, about 2,500 km per hour, and have an 11 kg explosive fragmentation warhead to eliminate their rivals. While this is a great option when facing UAVs, it presents a problem. The unit cost of these projectiles is very high, exceeding hundreds of thousands of dollars. Therefore, using it to destroy drones worth a few $1,000s is not a financially viable or sustainable strategy. Fortunately, it is not the only option for the United States. The U.S. Navy has a powerful ace up its sleeve when it comes to defensive systems. We are talking about the CIWS Phalanx, a proximity weapon system that has been installed on numerous ships of various types since the 80s. Its main task is defense against anti-ship missiles and helicopters, which it can shoot down in mid-flight with a maximum range of 5,500 meters. However, being a cheap and easy-to-install system compared to others, it allows any ship to have anti-air capabilities, providing great effectiveness when facing small boats, light aircraft, and, above all, drones. The Phalanx consists of a 6-barrel, 20mm caliber M61A1 Gatling-type cannon, the standard cannon for American fighters. It also has an automatic reloading system, 2 Ku-band radars for target search, and a remote operator station, capable of operating in automatic mode. Finally, to accompany these measures installed on their warships, U.S. forces have also deployed systems like Phalanx, but in strategic land locations. They can be used in areas where ships are most vulnerable, such as straits or channels that limit their maneuverability, and especially in any dock where ships are loading thousands of kilograms of explosive ammunition and become highly exposed targets. For those moments of vulnerability, there is also the CRAM. It is a land variant of the aforementioned proximity weapon system used by the Navy on its vessels and is also responsible for protecting them with its rapid-fire 20mm cannon, radar-controlled. It uses a forward-oriented infrared camera called FLIR, allowing its operators to visually identify the incoming threat before opening fire. The big difference with naval Phalanx systems is that these fire tungsten-penetrating rounds, while the CRAM uses HEITSD ammunition, a high-explosive incendiary tracer with self-destruction. This ammunition, originally developed for the M163 Vulcan air defense system, consists of bullets that explode upon impact with the target or when the tracer burns out, greatly reducing the risk of collateral damage from bullets that do not reach the target and providing greater chances of destroying or at least damaging the enemy. While these are some of the best alternatives that the Navy has found to its drone problem, technological advances open up a vast array of possibilities for the future. As UAV capabilities continue to advance, the United States is also working on the development and incorporation of directed energy systems. In this way, we can ensure that flying robots and laser weapons will cease to be scenes from science fiction movies and become an integral part of wars to come. Now, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us until the end. Stay tuned to our channel for our next video encounter.